On a stormy Tuesday night in October, Maya Chen was doing what she always did at Sunrise Diner, helping those who couldn't afford to help themselves. It was a decision that would cost her job but change her life in ways she never imagined. Drop a comment below and let us know. Have you ever had a moment that changed your entire life in just seconds? And don't forget to like and subscribe to hear what happens next in this incredible story. The incident happened just before midnight. Maya, 23, had been working double shifts at the diner for the past 3 years, supporting her younger brother through college while dealing with mounting medical bills for their father's treatment. The diner sat on the corner of 42nd and Madison, its faded blue exterior and cracked windows telling the story of better days long past. That night, like many others, Maya's mind wandered to her mother's last words. "Take care of Tommy and Dad, my brave girl." She was just 18 when cancer took her mom, leaving behind a family drowning in medical debt and a father who retreated into grief and alcohol. Maya had watched her college acceptance letters gather dust as reality set in. Someone had to be the adult, and that someone was her. Now, 5 years later, her hands bore the calluses of endless shifts. Her feet ached from 12-hour days, but her determination never wavered. Every morning, she'd stop by her father's room where he lay battling liver cirrhosis to give him his medications. His once strong hands, which had built houses for a living, now shook as he tried to hold a glass of water. "I'm sorry, Maya," he'd whisper, tears in his eyes. "This should have been my job, taking care of you kids." Tommy was her driving force. At 19, he was everything she'd hoped he'd become: brilliant, kind, and determined to make something of himself. His scholarship covered most of his college expenses, but books, housing, and meals still needed to be paid for. Every time she saw him hunched over his textbooks during his weekend visits home, she knew every blister and exhausting shift was worth it. The regulars at Sunrise Diner had become her second family. There was Joe, the elderly widower who always ordered coffee and toast, slipping her extra tips while telling stories about his late wife. Sarah, the night shift nurse who understood what it meant to care for a sick parent, would sometimes bring Maya homemade dumplings, saying, "You're too thin, honey." Even the homeless people she helped had stories that echoed her own fears: how quickly life could change, how easily dreams could slip away. Maya kept her mother's wedding ring on a chain around her neck, touching it whenever decisions got tough. Tonight, as she watched the shivering boy through the window, she felt its familiar weight against her heart. Her own family had come close to homelessness after her mother's death, saved only by a kind neighbor who'd brought them groceries and helped Maya find this job at the diner. The irony wasn't lost on her. Now she was the one sneaking food to others, risking her job every night. But she remembered too well the gnawing pain of hunger, the shame of empty cupboards, and the relief of a stranger's kindness. Her mother had always said, "We might not have much, but we have enough to share." Even now, with bill collectors calling and Tommy's tuition looming, those words guided her actions. "Chen!" Walsh barked from behind the counter, his voice carrying across the half-empty diner. "Those plates better be going straight to the trash." He stood watching, arms crossed over his pressed white shirt that seemed at odds with the greasy diner atmosphere. Maya nodded but continued her usual routine. The regular homeless visitors knew to wait by the back door at midnight, where she'd discreetly pass out wrapped sandwiches and untouched portions. It wasn't much, but in the 3 years she'd worked there, she'd never been caught. The rain had started around 11:30 p.m., bringing with it a sharp drop in temperature. Through the steamy windows, Maya noticed something unusual. A small boy, no more than 10 years old, pressed against the glass. His thin t-shirt was soaked through, his sneakers held together with duct tape. He wasn't one of the regulars she helped behind the diner. What Maya didn't know was that someone else was watching too. A black Tesla had been parked across the street for the past 20 minutes, its occupant observing the diner with unusual interest. Inside, Maya checked her phone. A text from her brother Tommy flashed on the screen. "Sis, tuition's due next week. Don't worry about it, though." She slipped the phone back into her pocket, her jaw set. They'd figure it out. They always did. The boy outside hadn't moved. His hands were pressed against the glass now, and Maya could see them shaking from the cold. Walsh was in the back office doing end-of-day calculations. It would take him at least 15 minutes to finish. Maya grabbed a bowl of hot soup and a grilled cheese sandwich that had been sent back untouched. She knew the consequences. Walsh had fired 3 employees in the past year for similar violations of policy. With her brother's tuition due and her father's medical bills piling up, she couldn't afford to lose this job. But as another crack of thunder made the boy flinch, Maya reached for the door handle. Behind her, Walsh's office door creaked open. Across the street, the man in the Tesla leaned forward, watching intently as Maya made a decision that would set off a chain of events none of them could have predicted. The bell above the door chimed as Maya stepped out into the rain. "Hey there," she said softly, kneeling to meet the boy's eyes. "Come inside where it's warm." The boy hesitated, his eyes darting between Maya's gentle smile and the warm light of the diner. Inside, other customers turned to watch the scene unfold, their forks pausing mid-bite. Maya guided him to the nearest booth, wrapping a clean dishcloth around his shoulders. "What do you think you're doing?" Walsh's voice cut through the diner's usual clatter. He stood at the end of the table, his face flushed with anger. "We're not a charity, Chen. You know the rules." Maya straightened her back, meeting her manager's glare. "He's just a kid, Mr. Walsh. He's freezing and hungry." She placed the hot soup and grilled cheese in front of the boy, whose hands trembled as he reached for the spoon. "That's it." Walsh's voice rose, drawing more attention from the customers. "You've been sneaking food out for months. Don't think I haven't noticed. This is the last straw." He pulled out his cell phone. "I'm calling the police. The boy is trespassing, and you're fired." The diner fell silent except for the sound of rain against the windows. Across the street, the man in the Tesla stepped out into the rain, his expensive suit getting soaked as he crossed the street with purposeful strides. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, just as Walsh was mid-dial. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," the stranger said, his voice calm but commanding. Everyone turned to look at the well-dressed man, water dripping from his tailored jacket onto the linoleum floor. The stranger strode toward Walsh, his presence immediately commanding attention. "I'm Ethan Pierce," he announced, reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out a business card. "CEO of Pierce Enterprises." The name made Walsh's eyes widen. Everyone knew Pierce Enterprises owned half the commercial real estate in the city. "Mr. Pierce, I had no idea," Walsh stammered, his phone forgotten in his hand. "This isn't what it looks like. I'm just trying to maintain standards." "I've been watching this diner for the past week," Ethan interrupted, his gaze shifting between Maya and Walsh. "Every night, I've seen this young woman sneaking food to those in need. Not stealing, mind you, saving perfectly good food from the dumpster to help others." Maya stood frozen, one hand still resting protectively on the boy's shoulder. The soup's steam rose between them untouched. "And tonight," Ethan continued, "I watched her risk her job to help a child. That's exactly the kind of person I want running a business." He turned to Walsh. "How much?" "Excuse me?" Walsh blinked. "The diner. Name your price." Ethan pulled out his phone. "I'll have my lawyers draw up the paperwork tonight." Walsh's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The other customers watched in stunned silence, some recording the scene on their phones. "Sir," Maya found her voice, "I don't understand. I've been looking to invest in someone with real character," Ethan explained, his eyes softening as he looked at her. "Someone who understands that business isn't just about profit." He paused, studying her face. "Would you be interested in running this place? Making it into the kind of establishment that serves everyone, not just those who can afford it?" Maya looked down at the boy, then at her apron pocket still full of wrapped sandwiches meant for the people waiting in the alley. Her voice trembled slightly. I don't have any business experience. You have something better," Ethan interrupted. "Compassion and work ethic. I've done my research on you, Maya Chen. 3 years of double shifts, supporting your brother through college, handling your father's medical bills. Never late, never complained." Walsh had backed away toward his office, his face ashen. A regular customer at the counter, an elderly man named Joe who came in every night, started clapping slowly. Others joined in. But what about... Maya gestured toward Walsh, who was now frantically scrolling through his phone, presumably looking up Pierce Enterprises. "Mr. Walsh will be well compensated for the diner," Ethan said firmly. "And as for you..." He glanced at the boy, who had finished his soup and was now watching them with wide eyes. "I think your first order of business might be setting up a proper meal program for those in need." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes. She thought of Tommy, of their mounting bills, of all the nights she'd wished she could do more than just sneak out leftovers. "Why me?" she whispered. Ethan smiled, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a worn photo. It showed a much younger version of himself standing in front of a soup kitchen. Because 30 years ago, someone took a chance on a hungry kid who had nothing. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to help, one meal, one moment of kindness. He tucked the photo away. The next hour passed in a blur of signatures and handshakes. Walsh retreated to his office with Ethan's lawyers, emerging occasionally to initial documents, his previous anger replaced by a dazed acceptance of his unexpected windfall. As midnight approached, the final papers were signed. Maya stood in the center of her diner, yes, her diner now, watching as Ethan shook hands with Walsh one final time. The boy who had started it all was still asleep in the booth, peaceful and warm, no longer a trespasser, but the first guest of the diner's new era. "Why did you really do this?" Maya asked Ethan softly as he prepared to leave. He paused at the door, rain still dripping from his expensive coat. "Because kindness," he said with a gentle smile, "is the best investment I know." He handed her the keys and stepped out into the night, leaving Maya holding not just a set of keys but a chance to change countless lives, all because she'd chosen to help a shivering child on a rainy night. Outside, the rain had finally stopped, and the diner's neon sign glowed steadily in the darkness, no longer flickering but shining bright and clear, just like the future ahead. And that's how one act of kindness in a small diner changed not just Maya's life, but the lives of countless others who would find hope and warmth within its walls. Sometimes the most extraordinary miracles happen in the most ordinary places, like a simple decision to help a shivering child on a rainy night. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still exists in this world. Have you ever experienced or witnessed a moment where one small act of compassion changed everything? Share your stories in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to join our community of storytellers and never miss another tale of hope, transformation, and the power of the human spirit. Remember, not all heroes wear capes. Sometimes they wear aprons and serve coffee with a side of compassion. Until next time, this is Alex, reminding you that every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change someone's world. Click the screen now to discover another story that will remind you why second chances are the universe's greatest gift. Until next time, keep believing in the power of transformation.